Book of Esther opens with a sick party. It is off the chain. This is meant to read as being as opulent a party as anybody could possibly ever imagine. This stuff that I'm about to read you right here, in the first, what are we going to do? I don't know, 9 verses, 8 verses, the Book of Esther, is supposed to conjure in the mind of the audience, of the reader, something that is so lavish and opulent and above and beyond that you can't imagine ever being invited to it. This is for other people. This is for a group of elites who are beyond elite, but this is the kind of thing that maybe normies like you and me might creep up to some fence where we can just barely do a little pull-up and peek our eyes over the top and see all of the fancy people doing their fancy stuff with giant bathtubs full of booze and dancers and music and precious metal and stone everywhere, but then our upper body strength gives out and we have to slide back down the wall and go back to our disgusting slum where we have to live all of the time as ourselves. This is meant to be a glimpse into an elaborate, beautiful world, but as I get ready to read this thing to you here, you, of course, are a student of story. You consume stories all the time. You're an expert at this. You know that if a story opens in a beautiful setting with everything being perfect, it's going to get wrecked or it's going to get exposed. There's going to be some kind of challenge to this environment. It's not what it seems. It's not permanent. You know that, or why would there be a story, right? There's no tension if it is what it appears to be. Well, the story goes like this. This is what happened during the time of Xerxes, the Xerxes who ruled over 127 provinces stretching from India to Kush. At that time, King Xerxes reigned from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa, and in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. The military leaders of Persia and Media, the princes and nobles of the provinces were present. For a full 180 days, he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and glory of his majesty. And when these days were over, the king gave a banquet lasting 7 days in the enclosed garden of the king's palace for all the people from the least to the greatest who were in the citadel of Susa. The garden had hangings of white and blue linen fastened with cords of white linen and purple material to silver rings on marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of, whoa, dang, what's this word? Porphyry. I assume that's a really fancy rock, but I don't know that word. Marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Wine was served in goblets of gold, each one different from the other, and the royal wine was abundant in keeping with the king's liberality. By the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink in his own way, for the king instructed all the wine stewards to serve each man what he wished. Now, there's some history stuff here that I think we can quickly glance at to put things in context. But before we do, let's just talk about this party a little more. This is over the top. Did you catch the details there? They had gold couches. I can't imagine that would be comfortable, but it'd be really cool to be like, yeah, sit on a gold couch. Who was it? Jennifer Lopez that had the little gold leaf, the gold shavings that she wanted in her toilets as part of her rider for doing concerts or something? Man, if that wasn't Jennifer Lopez, then I feel like I just slandered Jennifer Lopez, and that's not right of me, but I think that's who it was. I mean, gold is just a sign of extravagance, and it has been since forever. It doesn't matter what happens to your money, your paper money, your printed things. Anything gets crazy economically, there are 2 things that humans have always gone to the well on, and it's stuff that's shiny. It's silver and it's gold. We've always known that has value. And every culture that's ever wanted to flex their muscles economically rolls out the gold. Well, this Xerxes guy wants people to know that he has so much gold sitting around, he can make patio furniture out of it. Just, that's fine. Have a seat. Well, I mean, I've got like my sword and a hilt and stuff here. I'm afraid I might gouge it. I mean, gold is really soft. Like I care. You wouldn't believe how much gold I have. Make yourself comfortable. And also, do you like alcohol? Because this is the kind of party where there is alcohol. We got all the kinds of alcohol, and I've instructed my Persian bartenders here to serve you in whatever way you like. And isn't that an interesting part of this passage, by the way? The stuff about, by the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink in his own way. Does that mean as much as they wanted? Or did they have clever ways of drinking booze back then as well when things got real goofy to show off and stuff like Persian wine pong or Persian keg stands, or maybe had little Persian helmets with little holders for your golden wine goblets on either side of your head, and there are straws that come down. Maybe there's some kind of Persian or Median wine bong. I have no idea how they did this, but it sounds like it was the kind of ludicrous party that I would not be attending, both for economic reasons and for reasons of dignity. But even in the way this is framed, we see one of the things that we know from extra biblical sources about how the Persians thought, well, as well as from biblical sources, and that is that they were very understanding of other customs, other approaches to life. And so the idea here must have been that people handled their alcohol differently in different cultures from around the empire. And Xerxes here is trying to make it clear that this very important cultural phenomenon is something that's going to be honored. So just come to Susa and be yourself. Relax. Take half a year and party with me, and let's kick off this new age of the empire here properly. That seems to be the tone. But there's some important political stuff going on in the background here as well, and we actually know quite a bit about that from extra biblical sources. This Xerxes fellow had inherited the throne from his dad 3 years earlier, as the book of Esther opens. So that means that the book of Esther is opening presumably in 483 BC, because Xerxes' dad, Darius the Great, died in the fall of 486 BC, just shortly after naming Xerxes his heir, even though Xerxes was not at all his oldest son. So Xerxes is bringing some insecurity with him here. He's got a few things to prove, sure. We learn from the ancient historian Herodotus that there were some problems out and about very early in Xerxes' reign. This is a pretty common theme with all of these Persian kings. It's a big empire. They're holding on loosely to the fringes, and a whole bunch of people seem to want to test the resolve of the new king when he comes to power. So there are always going to be little revolts to be quelled at the beginning of the reign of each of these kings, and Xerxes is no exception. But now he's set up back at one of his many capital cities. Xerxes seemed to really favor Susa, which was a prominent city from the now defunct ancient empire of Elam. And apparently it was just too dang hot to rule from there in the summertime. But in the winter, this was a very popular place for Persian kings to hang out. In the summertime, they'd go up to the mountains, oftentimes to Ecbatana, the old capital of the Medes, up north in the hill country. But for half a year, presumably the winter, here we are having this gigantic party. Well, what is the occasion? Okay, well, we've talked about one thing that might be the occasion, and that's just to say, hey, I quelled the little rebellions real quick. There's a new king in town. I want to get to know everybody. I want to bring in the nobility. I want to bring in the rulers from the various satrapies and provinces. We'll talk more about the organizational structure of Persia at the time of Xerxes probably tomorrow. But Xerxes seems to want to get everybody in the same room for a very long time so he can make a personal connection with all of these people, because really that connection to the throne is the governmental model here. Sure, you've got a hierarchy of things and you've got all of these little subunits, almost like a federal model. But really, the Persian model of power is more like a wheel where you've got a bunch of spokes and they all feed back right to the throne of that one great king of kings, which means it really behooves the king to get to know everybody and make these connections and nurture these relationships right from the get-go. So that's one reason that we seem to be having this party. The other reason that we seem to be having this party is that Darius, his dad, got his butt handed to him by the Greeks at the Battle of Marathon, and that stuck in his craw to the very end. And it was a grudge that Darius never did get settled before he died. It was a grudge that he handed on to his son Xerxes. And so Xerxes just assumes the throne right into this obligation that you got to go crazy far out west and you got to punish the Athenians and probably the Spartans and a few others as well. And we are made aware by the ancient Greek historian Herodotus of a great war council that occurred in 483 BC to discuss and plan out the nuts and bolts of Xerxes' upcoming invasion of Greece. So it's possible that what we're looking at here in the book of Esther is a different 180-day party that happened in the third year of the reign of Xerxes. But if so, that means that the entire year was taken up with a party, because there was definitely a 180-day party that happened during the third year of the reign of Xerxes that we know about, that was dedicated to going and conquering Athens. So pretty clearly, this is that war council, which means we're going to get a bunch of details about it here in Esther, but we're also going to get a bunch of details about it from extra biblical sources, and we'll bring both of those to bear on the situation in the coming conversations. But the bottom line is this: the opening prologue of the book of Esther sits us in a place where things look really, really good. And like there's a king who's really, really in charge, and like he has unlimited resources and unlimited power. But if that's the way a story starts, it's usually prudent to expect a reversal, some sort of exposure of this seemingly perfect guy and this seemingly perfect world that he's building for himself. And indeed, that is how the book of Esther is going to play out. More about this gigantic kegger thrown by King Xerxes in Esther chapter 1 next time around. I'm Matt. Wait, no, stop. Don't go. I got to tell you something. I know that a lot of you invite your friends to listen to this. And I also know that there's certain parts of this conversation that we've had over the last few years that are easier to invite people to than other stuff. For example, the last 40 episodes, a lot of history. If you're into that, well, this is like your favorite thing ever. If you're not, or you've got friends who are not, it might be like, well, it's kind of an intimidating place to ask my friend to jump in. Oh, I gotcha, though. You will notice that right here in the episode that we just did today, what is this, 42, this is a very natural pickup point. So I'm even going back and putting in a little bonus episode or a little reworking of the first episode of the book of Esther to give any newcomer the option to listen to that full history prologue that you and I just finished, or to just skip right ahead to what you and I just did today. Which reminds me, if you're one of the people who went and got that message and then chose your own adventure and chose to skip ahead those 40 episodes and just pick up and join us right here, welcome. It's great to see you. Glad we're all hanging out. Esther chapter 1. This is so much fun. All right, now I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.